All right, here we go. We're just 50 days away until Election Day, and some new polling is showing just how tight the Georgia governor's race is. Joining me right now, Todd, moderator of NBC's Meet the Press. So, Chuck, you're going to have a brand new poll, an NBC poll, coming up this Sunday. Now, earlier this week, we saw two other national polls, including one from Quinnipiac, showing Governor Brian Kemp with a very slight lead over Stacey Abrams, but both polls are within the error or the margin of error. So which candidate should be feeling better right now?
Well, it's been interesting when you look at the Georgia polling. We continue to see the same pattern in the two big races. Kemp and Warnock both are leading, right? You would assume, and that to me is a fascinating pattern. And even as the race has tightened in both cases, the pattern is still held, right? Warnock still leads Walker, but Kemp still leads Abrams. And I think this is a real challenge for Stacey Abrams. I think it's sort of, how does she, who is the first of all, who is the Warnock-Kemp voter? And can she win over the Kemp voter? I've talked to some Democratic strategists who believe that Kemp is benefiting now from the fact that he's no longer tied to Trump, right? 4 years ago, it was easy for her to make the case he was far too extreme. He had the image of the pickup truck, the gun, and Trump's endorsement. 4 years later, we don't see the pickup truck, right? Number one. Number two, he had to take on Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't like, and I think that, it continues to be the challenge that there is a group of voters, and they appear to be geographically in the suburbs of Atlanta, who are voting Kemp Warnock. And is that simply about because they're ex-Republicans who are just desperate to find a non-Trump Republican? I don't know. But that, to me, is Stacey Abrams' big challenge right now.
Yeah, and you talked about Senator Raphael Warnock, and so let's talk a little bit about that. Warnock, Herschel Walker, they're going to debate now in mid-October in Savannah. How do you think each campaign is going to prepare for this particular debate?
Well, I think you have a case where certainly Warnock is the more experienced talker, right? Being a pastor, being a senator, having done this. Then again, Herschel Walker's been certainly given his share of paid speeches over the years, so in some way you could say he's a professional talker. But I do think if you're Walker, this is an environment he's never participated in. So I do think the good news for him is that the expectations are pretty low, but the bad news is he doesn't have a lot of experience doing this. And I think figuring out how can he, and I just, I think this is a steep hill. I think what Warnock has to be careful of is just simply stay out of the way. In football terms, prevent defense. There's, maybe you hope that Herschel Walker makes his own mistakes. You do some things that maybe you draw him into certain conversations you want to have. But ultimately, my guess is this is going to be a do no harm strategy in an odd way for both candidates. I think they're both going to be more afraid of what happens than necessarily enthusiastic about competing.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch. Now, as I mentioned before, you have a new NBC poll that's going to be coming to Meet the Press. So what are some of the things that you're going to be looking for?
Well, we're trying to, look, I'll give you a little bit of a preview. It's something, the Republicans are winning on all the issues that 6 months ago we all would have said would have guaranteed Republican success in November. The economy, crime, immigration. Voters prefer Republicans on those issues by a lot, not a little. But voters prefer Democrats on the issue of abortion rights and on the democracy. And right now it turns out that might be enough. Normally, when you don't have an economic issue on your side, you're in trouble. But this is a case where this election may not be about the economy.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see that poll. Chuck, thanks a lot. Meet the Press airs Sunday morning at 10 right here on 11 Alive. Thanks a lot, Chuck.